Aloha kako. Welcome to the hearing for the Committee on Culture, Arts, and International Affairs. Today is March 16th, and the time is 10:31, and we are convening in room 329. Today we have with us Vice Chair Tam and Rep Capella. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, I'm going to go over some brief housekeeping rules. First, there is a 2-minute time limit per testifier in order to allow as many people to testify as possible. Please keep yourself muted and your video off while waiting to testify and after your testimony is completed if you are joining us via Zoom. Zoom chat function will allow you to chat with the technical staff only. If you are disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin the meeting. If disconnected while presenting testimony, you may be allowed to continue if time permits. Please note the House is not responsible for any bad internet connections on the testifier's end. In the event of a catastrophic network failure, it may be necessary to reschedule the hearing or schedule a meeting for decision making. In that case, an appropriate notice will be posted. Lastly, please refrain from profanity or uncivil behavior. Such behavior may be grounds for removal from hearing without the ability to rejoin. With that, members and audience, we are going to get started on our first agenda item, SB 2059, SD1, relating to state symbols. First testifier we have is DLNR.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Rob Hopp with Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Wildlife. The department stands on its testimony in support of the measure. Thank you.
Mahalo. Is there two representatives from DLNR? I do have two DLNR listed.
Just one today. David Smith couldn't make it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to our next testifier, we have Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species.
Aloha, Chair Gates and Vice Chair Tam, members of the committee. My name is Kylie Lefebvre, and I'm in full support of the bill SB 2059. I'd like to say a big mahalo to your support on the House bill, its companion. And I'd also like to say that, Ohia in every way, which form is so deserving of, this appreciation and love and our care and protection, which this bill would help to offer for Ohia. I'd also like to mention that Ohia Lehua Day, as proclaimed by the governor, is actually on April 25th. And I can think of no better way to celebrate Ohia Lehua Day with this designation. And so I really appreciate and support and mahalo for your support and your consideration for this bill. Thank you.
Mahalo for your testimony. Okay, we're going to move on to our last testifier who has indicated they will be present to testify. We have Amber Mokiao-Lee.
Aloha, Chair Gates, Vice Chair Tam, and members of the committee. My name is Amber Mokiao-Lee, and I stand in support of Senate Bill 2059, which aims to designate the Ohia Lehua tree as Hawaii's state endemic tree. This bill, as you know, was brought about by students from all across the state and will allow for more protection of this precious natural resource, especially due to the devastating disease called rapid Ohia death that has killed over 1 million trees on Hawaii Island alone. I stand in support of this bill, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have regarding Ohia or rapid Ohia death, and mahalo for your time and support.
Mahalo. With that testifier being finished, is there anyone wishing to testify via Zoom or in person? Okay, seeing none. Members, do we have any questions? Okay, seeing none. I want to thank all the testifiers on SB 2059 for joining us today. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, SB 915, SD2. We have one person indicating that they will be present to testify, and that is Sarah Fairchild from Outrigger Duke Kahanamoku Foundation.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm here to testify in support of SB 915 to create a Kahanamoku specialty license plate. Kahanamoku is a cultural symbol of Hawaii, not just here, but around the world. He was the epitome of a native Hawaiian waterman. He excelled in every water sport he touched. He medaled 5 times in 3 Olympics for swimming and quickly became the most famous Hawaiian of his time. As he traveled the world, he introduced surfing everywhere he went, and he later became the first person to be inducted into both the Swimming and Surfing Hall of Fames. Though swim classes and water safety weren't organized in his time, he saved lives, recovered bodies of drowning victims, and taught swimming. Later, as Sheriff of Honolulu, an elected office which he held for 13 consecutive terms, he advocated for community safety. Ultimately, he was named the official state ambassador of Aloha. For all these reasons, I believe it's appropriate for him to be honored with a license plate, and the Outrigger Kahanamoku Foundation would take any funds raised with this to promote water safety by funding learn to swim programs and funding progressive swim teaching programs. Thank you.
Mahalo for being here. We appreciate your testimony. Okay, noting that that was our only testifier indicating they would be present to testify. Is there anyone on Zoom or in person wishing to testify on SB 915 SD2? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you again for your testimony. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, SB 2731 SD2, relating to Bishop Museum. First testifier we have is the State Foundation on Culture and Arts, Jonathan Johnson, the Executive Director.
Aloha, Chair Gates and members of the committee. State Foundation stands on our written testimony in support.
Mahalo for joining us, Director. Okay, next we have Ka'ivi Yoon from Bishop Museum.
Aloha, Chair Gates, Vice Chair Tam, members of the committee. I'm Ka'ivi from Bishop Museum. Thank you for your continued support of Bishop Museum and all the important work that we do for the state of Hawaii. Here to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay. Mahalo. Noting that that was our last testifier that indicated they would be present to testify. Is there anyone on Zoom or in person wishing to testify on SB 2731 SD2? Okay, seeing none. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. We are going to move on to our next agenda item. Mahalo for our previous testifiers for being here today. Our next measure is SB 3221 SD2 relating to international sister state relations. First testifier we have is Mark Ritchie from DBED.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. DBED will stand on its written testimony in support. Thank you.
Mahalo. Noting that that was our only testifier indicating they would be present, is there anyone else wishing to testify on SB 3221 SD2? Okay, seeing none, we're moving right along, members.
Chair, are we going to Q&A on the sister state one?
Yeah, we're in Q&A right now.
Okay. May
Go
I
ahead,
ask,
Rep. Ward.
Mr. Ritchie, please.
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie, any ballpark figures and what would it go for? Because I know I work with you guys doing a sister state with Bali and the state of Hawaii. And there was kind of like some kind of coffee and tea reimbursements, meaning we didn't give you much money to do this. How much money are you looking for this time? And what would be some of the things that you would do with it?
I think we were asking for about $200,000, although I could be off on that, but it would be for, as we come out of the pandemic, possibility of doing trade exchanges with some of our sister state partners. We might have a new sister state relationship coming up where we would probably host a reception for members to come over from that location. And it's to try to support or help subsidize some of the cultural exchanges and also business exchanges that go on.
You know, the playing field is quite uneven in that when we go overseas, we get red carpet, and probably some of the visits are half of the amount of money we have for all of our sister state agreements.
Right.
We're not totally reciprocating in terms of international protocol, but we're doing better, and I'm glad you guys are doing this. And hopefully it goes through well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good point.
Thank you for your question, Rep. Ward. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you to our last testifier. We're gonna move on to our last agenda item, members, SB 2202. We have one in support, but no one who has indicated that they will be present at our hearing to testify. Is there anyone on Zoom or in person wishing to testify on SB 2202 relating to volunteer month?
Chair, if no one testify, I'll testify as a former Peace Corps volunteer. I'll say, hey, this is a good bill. I made $100 a month for 2 years in the jungles of Borneo, and it was the best job I ever had. So I urge your approval of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, members, noting notes testifiers present. Is there any questions or concerns maybe for the chair? Okay, seeing none. Members are gonna recess for our 10:50 a.m. RESO hearing, and that will be ran by Vice Chair Adrian Tam. So recess.
Convening the Committee on Culture, Arts, and International Affairs 1050 agenda to hear the following resos. Today is March 16th at 10:50. Convening in room 329. Today we have Chair Gates, Rep. Capella, and Rep. Ward. Before we get started, I'm going to go over some brief housekeeping rules. There is a 2-minute time limit per testifier in order to allow as many people to testify as possible. Please keep yourself muted and your video off while waiting to testify and after your testimony is complete. Zoom chat function will allow you to chat with technical staff only. If you are disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin the meeting. If disconnected while presenting testimony, you may be allowed to continue if time permits. Please note the House is not responsible for any bad internet connections on the testifier's end. In the event of a catastrophic network failure, it may be necessary to reschedule the hearing or schedule a meeting for decision making. In that case, an appropriate notice will be posted. Lastly, please refrain from profanity or uncivil behavior. Such behavior may be grounds for removal from hearing without the ability to rejoin. First up, we have HCR 27 requesting the United States Census Bureau to redesignate the census designated place known as Captain Cook on the island of Hawaii as Ka'awaloa, and requesting the Hawaii County to remove all references to Captain Cook as a place name on the island of Hawaii. We have no one here to testify on Zoom or in person. Is there anyone in the audience willing to testify or on Zoom? Members, any questions to? Okay.
It's not very long. I just wrote it now.
Your name?
Oh, sorry. My name is Hema Kalahanui Kayama Watson. I'm testifying on behalf of this bill and support. Captain James Cook was an explorer of great fortitude and saw many places. However, he also brought diseases to our lands and captured one of our most high-ranking ali'i when he was mad and was killed for it. He was not remembered as one of the most well-known people, as one of the most and did not cause much positivity within our islands. I don't see how covering a place which already holds significance and has a traditional Hawaiian name with the name of one of the most infamous people in Hawaiian history is a great idea. It is better to return the place to its original name, Ka'awaloa, instead of its current name, Captain Cook, I believe is the county. Returning it to that original name will reinstate the mana that that place had, and it already has a memorial to Captain Cook. So I don't believe reinforcing his sentiments and his name on these islands is very important.
Thank you so much. Is there any questions from members? We have testimony and support from Jennifer Azuma Churupalu. We have late testimony support from Claire Matson and testimony in opposition from Dr. Kenneth Klockman. I'm going to ask any question or discussion. Moving on. HCR 45, HR 40, encouraging all counties of Hawaii to create a serial number plate design for motor vehicles to commemorate the accomplishments of Carissa Kainani Moore. We don't have anyone on Zoom or in person to testify. Is there anyone willing to testify on the measure for us? We have one late testimony support from Mr. Keith Amamiya. Members, any questions directed at me? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item number, HCR 14, establishing a sister state relationship between the state of Hawaii, the United States of America, and the autonomous region of Madeira, Portugal. First up, we have DBED.
Hi, this is Mark Ritchie for DBED. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. DBED will stand on its written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in person or online willing to testify on the measure before us? Members, that's all the testimony we have. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item, HCR 15, HR 14. Recognizing March 17th as St. Patrick's Day in honor of St. Patrick and in recognition of the longstanding relationship between Ireland and the United States of America and the noteworthy contributions and achievements of Irish Americans to our nation. We have no one here to testify in person or on Zoom. Is there anyone willing to testify on the measure before us? Seeing none, members, we have support from Charles St. Shore. We have opposition from Jennifer Azuma Shura-Pollock and Dr. Kenneth Coughlin. Members, any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we're going to recess for decision making.
Okay. We are returning to decision make on our Wednesday, March 16th, 10:30 a.m. agenda for the Committee on Cultural Arts and International Affairs. First item we have is SB 2059 SD1 relating to state symbols. Chair's recommendation is to pass this out as an HD1, defecting the date to 2044 and adding technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any questions, concerns, comments? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 2059 SD1, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair, Vice Chair votes aye. Rep Har.
Aye.
Rep Capella.
Aye.
Rep Nishimoto.
Aye.
Rep Yamane.
Aye.
Rep Ward.
Aye.
Chair recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. We're going to move on to our next item, SB 915 SD2 relating to special number plates. Chair's recommendation is to pass this out as an HD1, defecting the date to 2044 and clarifying the distribution of revenue raised from additional fundraising fees. Members, any questions, comments, concerns?
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
I was in the other hearing, so I didn't get, did they give us a sign or what would it look? Would it be with a surfboard or what would it look like?
They would work with the foundation to come up with.
So we
the
don't know
design.
right now.
No, we don't. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns, members? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 3338 ST2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any reservations?
Wait, aren't we voting on Senate Bill 915? I'm sorry, Vice Chair.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, sorry, Vice Chair.
Sorry.
No, no.
Voting on SB 9, thank you for the catch. SB 915 SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any reservations? Any noes? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 2731 SD2 relating to Bishop Museum. Chair's recommendation is to pass this out as an HD1, defective date to 2044, and adding technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote. Yeah, 2730.
Oh, 2731. Okay. Voting on SB 2731, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any reservations? Any noes? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, members, moving on to SB 3221 SD2 relating to international sister state relations. Chair's recommendation is to pass this out as an HD1 as well, amending the defective date to 2044 and adding technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Any questions, comments, concerns, members?
Chair comment.
Yes, Rep. Ward?
We could double the 200,000 that Tibet wants, and it still wouldn't be enough.
Thank
This
you.
is very important issue.
I agree.
Regarding what's going on in Taiwan and a lot of the world affairs.
And we're gonna leave that for the finance chair
Yes.
and finance committee to decide.
You can always spice it up in the committee hearing saying, hey, look, they're asking for too little or never mind.
Thank you for that. We'll take that under advisement. We're gonna, any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 3221 ST2, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting all members present. Any reservations? Any noes? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, members, last measure for our 10:30 a.m. agenda, SB 2202 relating to volunteer month. Chair's recommendation is to pass this out as an HD1, defecting the date to 2044 and adding technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on Senate Bill 2002, Chair's recommendation is to pass as an HD1, noting all members present. Any reservations? Any noes? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. We're gonna recess for our 10:50 a.m. decision making. Recess.
Convening our 10:50 agenda on the Committee on Culture, Arts, and International Affairs here in room 329. First up, we have HCR 27. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this with tech amendments for consistency and clarity. Because the introducer of this measure it represents this area, I think it's necessary to move this forward. Any discussion or comments or questions? Rep. Ward.
With the highest respect for the author and the representative of the area, I share the disdain for what Captain Cook did, but I also honor history. And because if we erase or quote cancel that, I'm afraid that what otherwise now is on the kind of a social agenda, when people mention Captain Cook, all those bad things that this excellent testifier mentioned are brought up. Hey, the guy thought he was confused to be a god, and then he was slaughtered because he was not a good person. That story needs to be retold. If we cancel it with this result, that story is not going to be told. And I'm afraid that that is probably a downside is big. So with that, I'm going to go with reservations and all due respect.
Any other discussion? Rep. Capella.
I think when we honor history, we also have to honor Native history. And Native Hawaiians had a name for this place before it was renamed Captain Cook. And I agree that we can still recognize the history of what has happened in that space, but I think it's incredibly important to honor place names. So that's why I strongly support this bill. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, Chair for the vote.
Okay, members voting on HCR 27. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair, Vice Chair vote aye. Rep Har?
Aye.
Rep Capella?
Aye.
Rep Nishimoto?
Aye.
Rep Yamane?
Aye.
Rep Ward?
Reservations.
Thank you. Vice Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to HCR 45 HR 40, encouraging all counties of Hawaii to create a special number plate design for motor vehicles to commemorate the accomplishments of Carissa Kainani Moore. The Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this as is. Any discussion?
Sure. Just an
Yeah,
FYI,
Ward.
Clarissa Moore's auntie is one of my constituents, and this will make her proud in my district. So this is excellent. She's such a good surfer.
I believe we are all proud of her.
Commemorate at such a young age also, inspiring for our youth, quite frankly. So full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep Ward. Anyone else? Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, members voting on HCR 45. Chair's recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present. Is there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Seeing none, Vice Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Moving on to HCR 14, establishing a sister state relationship between the state of Hawaii, the United States of America, and the autonomous region of Madeira, Portugal. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass this as is. Members' discussion. Seeing none, Chair for the vote.
Okay, members voting on HR 40. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass as is.
HCR
HCR
14.
14. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Is this it? Oh, 14. Okay, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear for the record, on the previous vote, it was HCR 45 and HR 40. So
Yeah.
we were voting together on those bills, on those resolutions.
Yes.
So we just put slash 40.
So the votes for HCR 45 are the same for HR 40.
Yeah,
Correct.
And now voting on HCR 14.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wish they went to law school.
That's why it's so hard.
HCR 14 is fine.
All right.
It's good.
So as is. Okay, members, sorry about that. We are voting on HCR 14. Recommendation is to pass as is, noting all members present. Is there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to our last item on the agenda, HCR 15 HR 14, recognizing March 17th as St. Patrick's Day in honor of St. Patrick and in recognition of the longstanding relationship between Ireland and the United States and the noteworthy contributions and achievements of Irish Americans to our nation. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Discussion? Rep Ward.
Brief comment. I want to commend the author, Representative Mizuno, who's not Irish, by the way, and the spirit of aloha that authoring this reso for the Irish represents. So it's exciting to see. Thank you. She's a Boston attorney. Nice to see her.
Thank you, Rep Ward. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Chair for the vote.
Okay, members voting on HCR 15, HR 14. Recommendation is to pass out as is, noting all members present. Is there any members voting with reservations? Any members voting no? Seeing none, your recommendation is adopted by Chair.
Before everyone goes, we're gonna do a revote on HCR 45/HR 40. Just to make sure that we have it on the record, that we have voted for it. So voting on HCR 45, HR 40, encouraging all counties of Hawaii to create a special a special number plate designed for the motor vehicles to commemorate the accomplishments of Carissa Kainani Moore. Vice Chair's recommendation is to pass as is discussion. Seeing none, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, members voting on HCR 45, HR 40. Recommendation from Chair is passing out as is unamended. Noting all members present, is there any members voting no? Any members voting reservation? Seeing none, your recommendation is adopted, Chair.
Thank you. This hearing is adjourned.